For this video, jump into lesson number 11, which is the introduction to arrays and object types, and also open this up inside the browser. So in JavaScript, there are two groups we can place our types into. There is both primitive and object types. The previous data types which we've looked at, such as a string, number, boolean, undefined and null, all fall into a group called primitive types. There is also big int and symbol too, which we have not yet covered. We're now going to discover the object types, and the first one is an array. The previous primitive values we've looked at store one single value, such as a string of text or one number, but an array can hold multiple values. If you think of a shopping list, a to-do list, or generally any list with multiple values, an array is ideal for this type of data. So let's take a look at our first array inside of the project folder. Head down to the script section and we create an array with these square brackets. Arrays can hold any data type, such as a string, just like this. Separated by comma, we'll add multiple values inside of here. We can place in numbers. We can place in objects, which we're going to look at next. Or we could also nest inside an array too. To do this, we just create a new set of square brackets, just like this. Then we continue to add our information inside. So if we wanted to place in two strings, we would do it just like this. Or if we wanted to use an array for a list, let's say a list of pizza ingredients, we would just do it by adding multiple strings separated by a comma. Let's say dough, cheese, the sauce, and also some pepperoni too. So how do we access any of these values? Well, just like we did with any other values, we can also store this inside of a variable. We'll say let pizza to be equal to this new array. And then down at the bottom we have our document. We're selecting the title and then setting the inner text to be equal to this string. Instead, we can replace this string with the value of our pizza array. Refresh the browser and then we see a list of all of our ingredients. Reading individual values from this pizza array is simple too. Array values are numbered from position 0. And this is called the index position. So the first one of dough is index position 0. This is 1, 2, and 3. And we can use this inside of the square brackets to access any one of these ingredients. So position 0, which is the dough, we can access this individually. And also any one of the other values too. Arrays also have something which is called a property. As we get into much more detail about these object types, you will discover that object types such as an array will have multiple properties or methods available. These allow us to perform certain actions or also access some information too. First of all, let's take a look at a property called length. So rather than accessing just this third value here, we can chain onto the end .length, refresh, and we see there's 4 values contained inside of here. We could use this any way which we wanted to. For example, if we wanted to place this variable inside of a string, we could open up the backticks. We could say this pizza has. Using a template string, we can pass in a variable with the dollar symbol and then the curly braces. Pass in the pizza.length. Then ingredients. So this should say this pizza has 4 ingredients. Over to the browser, and there we go. Arrays also have some built-in methods available too, which we can use to perform some common tasks, such as pushing a new item to this array. We can remove values and also check if the array contains a certain value too. So for example, let's check if our pizza contains the value of pepperoni. To do this, we first access our array by the name. We then use .includes, and inside of the brackets we can pass in a value which we want to check. In our case, we want to check if this contains pepperoni, and this will then return back either a true or a false value if this is contained. We can also store this inside of a variable too, and let's call this has pepperoni. And then below we can replace this inner text. So let's remove this template string and replace it with our variable. Give this a save, and if you do see a jump just like we had there, this is just the text editor saving and reformatting the document. So make sure this is saved and over to the browser. This is true because the value of pepperoni is contained inside of this array. We can change this to be an incorrect spelling and this would be a false value. Or if we did have the correct spelling, we could also use the exclamation mark just in front of this. Like we looked at in the previous video, this will then return the opposite value, which is also false too. There's also many more of these methods available too, and there is also a dedicated array section coming up to go into these in more detail.